Welcome to another of my Wednesday lectures that are aimed specifically at people who are doing our Fall 2023 challenge, but also at anybody who's eager to lower their blood sugar levels significantly and not take years to do it. Today, we're going to talk about the concept of simplicity. In the comments under my videos, I get a lot of very nice compliments, and I think one of my favorite compliments, which is one I get a lot, is when people tell me that I've made things very simple and easy to understand. I've always felt that this was one of the gifts God gave me, the ability to make things simple enough for almost anybody to get what I'm teaching. I taught that way when I was a pastor. I did this in my evangelistic preaching in Africa, and of course I do it on my Beat Diabetes videos. I'm convinced that simple is always best, not only because everybody can understand you, but also because when you keep things simple, you increase your chances of success. Complex and complicated programs and formulas and books may work for some, but not for most. I believe this is not only true with making YouTube videos, it should also be true of our diet, particularly when we're crafting a diet to beat diabetes and lower blood sugar levels. I remember years ago when I was reading a book on diabetes, the author gave numerous recipes in that book, but many of the ingredients were things I never bought in my life. One of the recipes called for cleaned squid. Clean squid. Where do you buy clean squid? I wouldn't even know where to get dirty squid, let alone clean squid. I never remember my mom calling me to dinner when I was a child saying to me, "Come in for supper, Dennis. We're having squid tonight." Of course, I'm a pretty simple guy, so being simple comes easily and naturally to me. I don't have to work too hard at it. And when I started having my own runaway blood sugar, I looked for simple answers. And I found that by testing my blood sugar about an hour after I finished eating. I could evaluate the effect of various foods and meals that they had on spiking my glucose. When they spiked my glucose over 150, I dropped them. I wanted nothing to do with them. But if they kept my glucose less than 140 about an hour after I ate, then I would retain that meal or food, and it didn't take long for my blood sugar to stabilize. Well, I know a lot more about diabetes now than I did in those early days, but as I look back, that plan of vetting my foods was nearly perfect. Often people will argue fiercely about whether to judge foods by their real carbs or their net carbs, and people have very strong opinions about that. But my philosophy was to accept or reject foods based on their mic carbs. Of course, I'm talking about Mike, the glucose meter. If any food or meal had enough carbs to raise my glucose levels to the point where my meter read 140 or higher, that was it. I was done with it. Net carbs or real carbs hardly mattered to me. It was the mic carbs that I was concerned about. Later, I did sometimes try new meals based on their low net carbs, but that was never the final choice. I waited until Mike, my glucose meter, weighed in on the meal. If Mike was good with it, well, I was good with it. But getting back to the idea of simplicity, one thing I have moved toward more and more in my diet is reducing the number of total foods I would eat at any meal. In the old days, I would want at least 4, sometimes maybe 5 or 6 different foods at a meal so I could feel I was really eating well. These days, I usually eat 2 or 3 foods at most at any particular meal. I was fascinated recently when I watched a video on YouTube by Becky Gillespie who suggested that when it comes to our diet, boring is vastly superior to exciting, especially concerning weight loss and reducing metabolic syndrome. She told how researchers talk about the cafeteria diet model, which is used to fatten up mice for obesity experiments. Researchers have found that when they give mice a diet with a big variety of foods and textures and tastes, they will overeat like crazy and gain a lot of weight, at least a lot of weight for their little mouse bodies. But if they give mice just one food at meals, they'll soon become satiated and just stop eating, which keeps them slim. One research paper stated that a large variety of foods at meals promotes obesity and metabolic syndrome in the mice, and of course, could well in people. They stated that when you feed mice one food, they experience what they called palate fatigue. And when you think about that, you realize we've all experienced it. When we eat one or two foods at a meal, we have a hard time picking out on those foods. We just get kind of bored and tired of eating and chewing the same food and just tasting that same taste continually. All that chewing on the same food just makes the food lose its appeal. And after a while, we just say, well, we're full. We might even say we're stuffed. But on the other hand, if someone offers us a sweet dessert with a totally different taste from what we've been eating, lo and behold, we suddenly regain our appetite and we're ready to open the cafeteria once again. Becky Gillespie mentioned a guy named Adam who has a channel on YouTube called Travel Channel. He heard about a challenge from an ice cream shop in San Francisco where they challenge people to eat 8 scoops of ice cream. I guess you get it free if you can do it. So you have to eat 8 big scoops of ice cream with various toppings in less than an hour. So Adam went to San Francisco to take that challenge. He started it on the ice cream, but about halfway through the humongous tub of ice cream, he started getting weaker and weaker, and he wasn't sure he could eat any more. Then he decided to try to help himself get through the ice cream. He would order a small order of French fries. And sure enough, it did help. He found it easier to down more ice cream after tasting some of the salty fries. In about 45 minutes, he finished off the last of the ice cream and he beat the challenge. Well, that was a perfect example of the cafeteria diet model. In other words, if you want to be overweight and have lots of room for lots and lots of food, be sure and eat many different varieties of foods. I was reading down the comments of that video, and one person said this: the secret to eating challenges is to occasionally slip in a contrasting type of food. Some salty French fries are perfect for a tub of creamy ice cream. Some guys who do hot dog challenges use gummy bears in a similar way. But there is another reason for eating 2 or 3 foods at a meal. The more foods you pile on your plate, the more likely it is that one or more of those foods will not be truly low carb. They may not be high carb, but they are likely to be medium carb. And this, plus the fact that you'll probably eat more than you would if you had only 2 or 3 foods, is going to lead to higher blood sugar and weight gain and cause you to stall from making the progress you need to make. So, when eating to beat diabetes, one of the mottos you should employ is keep it simple. Or you might even say keep it a little bit boring. Any meat can be combined with any garden salad, Cobb salad, low-carb vegetable like green beans or broccoli, and you've got yourself a meal. And another aspect of the simplicity factor is to eat the same meal at least twice. So Tuesday's lunch can be Wednesday's lunch, and Tuesday's dinner can be Wednesday's dinner. This evening I had a dinner of roasted chicken and a chaffle with cream cheese, and that was it. Nothing exciting, but it was tasty, and it was such a low-carb meal there was no point in bringing out my friend Mike the glucose meter. I just didn't need him. Sorry, Mike. There weren't enough carbs, net or real, to affect blood sugar much. I had some coffee afterwards, and I was done eating for the day. Nothing more to eat until lunch tomorrow, except for my bulletproof coffee in the morning. Let me give you a little secret. You should have the same 3 goals with every meal you eat. That's right, 3 main goals. First, you want to get relatively full, not stuffed, but full. No diet, no eating approach, no culinary lifestyle is ever going to work for you if you're hungry after every meal. You will surely fall off the wagon if you're constantly hungry. It's not a matter of if, but when. So you really have to fill up when you eat. Now, some of you say, well, yeah, but you're saying have a little meat and some salad or low-carb vegetable. I could never get full on a piece of meat and a salad. Of course you could. Anybody could. Just keep eating larger and larger portions until you get full. If 2 pieces of roasted chicken does not fill you up, then eat 3 pieces or 4 pieces of roasted chicken and 2 chaffles or 3 chaffles. Eventually you will get full or you'll just get tired of chewing. So goal number 1 is to get full. Goal number 2 for any meal is to enjoy it. You must be able to enjoy your meals to create a lifestyle you can live with for the rest of your life. Finding enjoyable foods is not really that hard to do, and sometimes you can jazz things up a bit. If a hamburger patty is too bland for you, then put some mushrooms on it or melt some cheese over the top. Sometimes I'll even put some sugar-free barbecue sauce on my burgers. Now, goal number 3 for any meal is that it should not raise my blood sugar beyond 130 milligrams per deciliter. Of course, if you've just started dealing with high glucose, you're probably going to be way over 130 before you ever begin eating. So that kind of a goal wouldn't be realistic for you. But set a goal of a mild, gentle spike. Even if you're up to 300 before you eat, don't allow yourself to go to 400 after you eat. Just set a goal for a gentle, mild spike. It's not going to do much, rather than a sharp, over-the-top spike. If I eat a meal that does those 3 things, number 1, fills me up, number 2, it's enjoyable, number 3, doesn't spike my blood sugar, then I call it a success. I'm a winner. For the next 4 to 6 hours until I eat again, my glucose will be under control. And if I want to stay a winner, I just need to stay with those goals meal after meal and day after day. Something that fills me up, it's enjoyable, doesn't spike my blood sugar. What I'm advocating is a low spike diet. Let me say it again so you don't miss it. A low spike diet. Now, if you have bulletproof coffee for each breakfast or in lieu of a breakfast, and if you repeat the same meal for 2 days, and if you only eat carnivore on Mondays, which is one of the challenge guidelines, what this means is you only need to prepare 6 meals for an entire week, with each meal being eaten for 2 successive days. And on top of that, I do allow, on this challenge, keto desserts on Friday and Saturday nights. I know that sort of breaks the simplicity rule, but we are human after all, and sometimes we need a little pizzazz in our lives, just not too much. I have a list of 6 meals that would work well for you listed in the description, which can work for an entire week. Just 6 meals, but you're going to repeat each meal twice over the week, and you've got yourself a whole week's worth of meals. Keep in mind you'll have bulletproof coffee in the mornings. Now, you can eat more or less of the foods, in other words, 2 helpings, whatever, without worrying about spikes because they are so low carb. So be simple and stay simple. In other things, you can be as wise and clever and sophisticated as you want to be. But in your eating habits, be simple, even a little bit boring. When you've crossed over the border into diabetes, it's time to do some serious rethinking about the way you eat. When we were young, a lot of us boys loved to drive fast and kind of crazy, and we loved fancy, sharp cars. And what was the result? Well, we got into accidents, we got speeding tickets, and in some cases, guys had their driver's licenses taken away. But finally, we grew up. We calmed down and started driving safely and reasonably. And our goals changed. In those youthful years, our goal was to have fun, impress the girls, and act a little cool. But somewhere along the line, any cool that we might have had, and I never had much anyway, but any cool we might have had got lost. And other goals became paramount. When I go out for a long road trip these days, my major goal is just to get from my starting point to my destination without getting a ticket and without getting into an accident or even having a close call. What I want on my driving trips these days is a dull, boring, non-eventful journey that will bring me safely to my destination. And that should be our attitude toward our diet and having victory over diabetes. It was enough for us to eat those donuts and ding-dongs and fruit pies and Twinkies when we were in our teens and 20s, but those days are long past. And to quote the Apostle Paul, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. You've had a long time to eat like a child. It's time to eat like an adult. I want you to know that I have another YouTube channel. It's called by my name, Dennis Pollock, and on this channel, my wife Benedicta and I teach the basics of the Bible in a simple, user-friendly fashion. Normally, on Mondays, I post what I call a video devo, in which I take various Bible topics and share scriptures to help you understand the subject a little better. On Thursdays, I post Bible studies by Benedicta and me as we sit at our dining room table and discuss various portions of the Scriptures. We cover book studies and Bible character studies. So catch me on Mondays sharing devotional talks, and Benedicta and me on Thursdays as we study the greatest book in the world, the Bible. Check in the description to find a link to our Bible teaching channel, which is called by my name, Dennis Pollock.